How about that deal, huh? Justin Herbert, they get it done. You figured it was going to happen, hopefully, for the Chargers this offseason. They've been talking about it. There have been rumblings about it, but it's a 5-year, $262.5 million contract extension. It includes a no-trade clause, $133.7 in fully guarantees, $193.7 million in injury guarantees. Justin Herbert gets paid. It was his turn, his time to get a bite at the apple, and so now the Chargers have him locked in for the next several years.
Was that an apple?
Yeah, it might have been a whole produce aisle.
Yeah, it might have been an entire apple tree.
Apple tree.
Yeah.
Here's a couple.
All right, financial guru, step right up. What does this deal really look like, Brady Quinn?
Okay. Let's just pump the brakes, okay? A few things. First off, here's what happens when these deals get reported, okay? We start looking at numbers, and the agents are feeding it to the media, and the media is blowing certain numbers out of proportion because you see the $262.5 million. Oh, it's the biggest ever. Okay. He's got 2 years left on his deal. It's an extension. And so as it looks right now, his new money average surpasses that of Jalen Hurts and others that have signed their deal, leapfrog that. But when you take into account he's played 3 years, so he really had 2 years left on his rookie deal if you include the fifth-year option. And so it brings the average way down. So what's being reported is one thing. What the actual reality of the contract, when you include his 2 years that he was under contract under, it's something entirely different. Now, it doesn't matter, right? Like at the end of the day, none of that matters. They got him under contract. They extended him. I think the tough thing, and I've said this time and time again, is no quarterback and no other player for that matter, no one's contract's ever going to stand up to the deal that Jimmy Haslam gave Deshaun Watson. They're just not. They're just not. That being a 5-year fully guaranteed deal at signing, no questions, no other. It's an injury guarantee to this. He can have up to these guarantees or this total value at this point. None of that. It was just a 5-year fully guaranteed deal. None of it is even going to come close to that, or at least none of the contracts that have been signed. So it's a fair contract. It's a good contract. It doesn't matter really what we think of the contract. It's the one that Justin Herbert signed. It's the one that the Chargers needed to get him under in order to have control over him now for the next 7 years. And more so than that, like, it really doesn't matter. Like, this deal will probably get renegotiated if he plays the way we think he's going to play over the course of the next 3 or 4 years. They'll probably have to restructure it at times to make cap space because they believe it's their franchise quarterback. So, we can dig into the details of it, but the hard thing is it pales into comparison to Watson's deal. Most are going to. And that has everything to do with the fact that Jimmy Haslam's got deep pockets, and he's willing to sign a quarterback that he believes in to a fully guaranteed deal where a portion of that, those guarantees has to go into escrow. And most owners are not willing to do that. They're not going to give you some huge contract with $230 million guaranteed at signing. It's not going to happen. There might be practical guarantees involved in it, and there is in this particular deal, but you're not going to see that sort of structure because most of the owners don't have the type of money that Jimmy Haslam has.
Well, I think it does. Let's start looking at, in my opinion.
Let me ask you this.
Go ahead.
Do you feel like he had done enough to warrant the extension, given that he still technically was under control for 2 more years?
No.
Did you feel like – because, look, the Bengals haven't signed Burrow yet. Maybe they will before the season starts. But they haven't signed him to an extension yet.
I think it's a wise move on both parties' part. And I'll tell you why. Because with 2 years left, the value could tremendously go up for those players, right? If you don't sign Herbert and Burrow over this amount of time, that price tag could be crazy large, much larger than what they're going to be able to sign them for today. That's the value for for the organization, for the franchise. For the player, if we always had the conversation of betting on yourself, or if it makes sense to do a better deal later based off of your performance and your body of work. But just as much as your accomplishments can go up, they could also plummet as well. You're always one injury away from not only not being as good, you're one injury away from not playing. And so I think when you take the security of a contract so large, and the value of it being what it is, I think it was a win for both sides. And I think everybody is going, while they may not get to what Deshaun Watson was able to do, everybody's going, at least I won't say everybody, every single elite level quarterback like a Herbert, like a Burrow, they are going to work off of the premise of, here is the established value of who the best quarterback, best highest paid quarterback is. And they'll use the argument point that he's probably not a better quarterback than me, or that he's not a better quarterback than our client. And so while you may not get that same exact contract, these teams and these franchises are going to be saddled with the responsibility of being competitive some type of way to how Deshaun Watson was compensated. And so that's where you're going to hear the number 260 or 270 or whatever it may be. Hell, they may get to 300 with what it is that they say pretty soon. So, and whether it's fully guaranteed or not, the value of it, I think, makes it feasible for the player to say, I'm the franchise quarterback, I'm the next one up. Yes, I'm okay with doing it. I think that's what makes the most sense of it, in the way at least I'm interpreting it.
I think quarterbacks recently are put into 4 different categories. You ready for these 4 categories?
Sure.
There's, you're paid for accomplishment, you're paid for potential, you're paid for both, or you're paid out of desperation. I think Joe Burrow, when he gets paid, is going to be paid for both, what he's accomplished and potential. Same with Lamar Jackson. I think Justin Herbert is being paid on potential, and I think Deshaun Watson got paid because they were desperate. And Baker Mayfield basically said, I'm not coming back. And if you wanted to land Deshaun Watson, who wanted to go elsewhere, you were going to have to overpay. And I think that continues to be, to Brady's point, the outlier that everybody looks at and goes, who's going to beat it? Nobody recently, and apparently nobody anytime soon, it looks like. And that continues to be a team that got desperate and forked out a bunch of money to pay for a guy with all sorts of things on his track record and brought him in because they were desperate to have a quarterback.
On the table. It was on the
I've
table,
seen
not on the track record.
I've seen people who question whether or not, he should have gotten this contract at this point. Has he gotten to the point where he should be one of those guys who's viewed that way? I don't think there's any question about it. I think if you watch Justin Herbert play, you'd say to yourself, that's a franchise quarterback.
Yes.
He literally exhibits all of the qualities you're looking for. And then statistically kind of backs it up, right? He's thrown for more yards in his first 3 seasons than anyone in the NFL history. He's second to Marino in touchdown passes in that span. You look at his quarterback rating and all that. It's one of the highest for the first 3 years, again, for a player this young in the league. And remember, when he went in his rookie year, he was not slated to be the guy. It was Tyrod Taylor until one of their medical professionals punctured his lung and they thrusted Justin Herbert in. And he's never looked back. I mean, baptism by fire or baptism by needle to someone's lung.
By stabbing.
Yeah. And he's
baptism
never
by
looked
shiv.
back. So if you think about it from that perspective, it's pretty remarkable to think like he has taken over the reins, never looked back with it, and has gotten them to a point where I think we always look at them to take that next step. Now the question is, can they take that next step? I don't think it's all on him. I think they need to, as a team, to do this. And by the way, this contract is set up where it allows them to be able to bring along some of their other players too, who are on this roster.